When I was 19, I agreed to house sit for my cousin while she went out of state with her boyfriend. She lived in this charming two-story home tucked deep in a wooded neighborhood, the kind where the GPS cuts out a mile before you actually arrive. It was one of those picturesque houses you'd see in a fall-themed Airbnb listing. Big wraparound porch, flower beds in front, wooden wind chimes that made the whole place feel peaceful. I always loved visiting her, so when she asked me to stay there and look after her cat, I said yes immediately. The cat's name was Willow, a tiny gray tabby that always acted more like a shadow than a pet. She barely meowed, didn't really like being touched, but she was my cousin's pride and joy. There was just one quirk. Willow hated thunderstorms. According to my cousin, she'd hide under the bed for hours if it even looked like it might rain. And, as luck would have it, the weekend she was leaving just happened to line up with a forecast of back-to-back storms. Friday was calm, overcast maybe, but quiet. Willow sat on the windowsill most of the day like a little stone gargoyle, just watching the trees sway outside. Saturday afternoon, the rain started. I was curled up on the couch, listening to it drum against the windows while reading one of those old paperback thrillers from the shelf. Willow had vanished somewhere in the house, probably under a bed or deep in a closet, which was totally normal. What wasn't normal, though, was the phone ringing. And I don't mean my cell. I mean the actual landline phone mounted to the wall in the hallway. Now, I hadn't touched that thing. In fact, I'd completely forgotten people still had those. The screen flashed, unknown caller. I didn't answer, figured it was spam or maybe one of those scam calls. It rang out, then went to the machine. That's when it got strange. A voice came through the answering machine. A man's voice, soft, deliberate, almost as if he was unsure whether to speak. He only said one word, my cousin's name. Riley? Then silence. Then the click of the call ending. I froze. The way he said her name wasn't friendly. It wasn't angry either. It was hollow, like he was expecting her to respond. I texted her right away, let her know someone had called asking for her. She didn't respond. An hour later, the phone rang again. Same thing. Unknown caller. I didn't answer, but this time, he didn't leave a message. Neither did he the third time. Or the fourth. Each call came roughly an hour apart, like clockwork. Never any words, just a long pause, then a hang-up. By that point, it was getting dark. The wind was picking up and thunder rumbled low through the trees like a warning. Still, I tried not to let it freak me out.
Around 9:30, I headed upstairs with Willow's food and water. I still hadn't seen her all day, which was unusual even for her. As I was refilling her dish in the corner of the bedroom, I noticed something odd. Willow wasn't hiding under the bed. She was standing completely still at the bedroom window, staring down at the front yard. I walked over slowly, heart thudding in my chest, and looked out with her. There was nothing there. Or, at least I thought there wasn't. It was hard to tell. The porch light barely reached the trees, and the rain had fogged up the outer glass just enough to blur shapes in the distance. But still, I swear I saw something shift. Just enough movement to know I wasn't imagining it. Willow hissed, very quietly, and then darted under the bed. That's when I locked the window. Something I hadn't thought to do before. I left the bedroom, went downstairs, and did the same thing for every other window and door. Every lock clicked with the weight of reality pressing just a bit heavier than it had that afternoon. Back upstairs, I sat on the bed with the TV on mute, too distracted to follow the plot. Another hour passed. Then the phone rang again. I stared at it across the room. I knew it was him. I didn't answer. I couldn't. This time, he didn't even wait for the machine. He just let it ring, long and slow, like a metronome that dragged on for nearly a full minute before silence returned. I picked Willow up and placed her in my lap, just for some kind of comfort. That's when the power went out. All at once. TV dead, lights gone.
Silence. Only the storm outside remained, wind and rain howling against the walls. I sat there frozen, not sure what to do. Then I heard something. Downstairs. A creak. Not like the house settling, not wind. A footstep. Willow's ears perked up instantly. She leapt from my lap and ran to the bedroom door. And just stood there. Not scratching to get out, not meowing, just staring at the space beneath the door. The small crack between the floor and wood. Just like she had at the window. I grabbed my phone and turned the flashlight on. The battery was at 8%, of course. I tiptoed toward the door and crouched down to look under it. At first, I saw nothing, just the dimly lit hallway. Then, shoes. Just the toes of black shoes standing inches from the door. Whoever it was had no idea I was watching. My breath caught in my throat. I slowly reached up and turned the lock on the knob. Click.
And then, without warning, the shoes turned. Whoever was out there ran fast, thundering down the stairs like a wild animal. I waited, listened. No more movement. Then, the sound of the front door slamming open. I called the police immediately. They were there in under 10 minutes. No one was in the house. No signs of forced entry. Every lock was still latched, every window still shut. The officers searched the woods, questioned a few distant neighbors. Nothing. But one of the cops pulled me aside after and asked me something I'll never forget. Was your cousin seeing anyone? Anyone persistent? I said I didn't think so. She never mentioned anyone like that. He nodded and showed me something one of the officers found at the edge of the porch. A photograph. An old, faded photo of Riley, taken from what looked like a distance, through a window. She was reading on the couch. Her cat was in her lap. The picture was bent at the edges, like it had been carried around for a while. There was no name on the back, no note, just a greasy thumbprint smudged across the corner. The officer told me the man had probably been watching her for weeks, maybe longer. Maybe he didn't know she was out of town. Maybe he thought she was ignoring him. Or maybe he knew. That part still keeps me up at night. Because I never answered the phone, never said a word, and yet he still came. He wasn't trying to reach her anymore. He was trying to reach whoever was inside.